Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Marvel Rivals Championship game. We are in round 6 in the upper bracket. Ryan is back with me today as we are jumping in with some familiar names. We've got some teams who've done very well in MRC before, who've had some very solid performances, Ryan. We are going in for Dawncore versus QMISTRY.
Yeah, it's a good sort of look, I suppose, of the EMEA teams that could be pushing for the championship next week. And we are casting exclusively together, I think, into playoffs, like every day I think I have with you. So
I believe...
it's worth getting some reps in.
I believe so. Oh yeah, for Ignite, yes. Sorry, yes. With you, with Ignite, yes. I think we're not casting together. I think it's me and Leg Day and you and Moxie for MRC.
Yeah.
Nice. Get to do
Doing
all
a little
the
bit of
fun
that.
stuff. Hell yeah. So, we're starting off on Krakoa. This is a best of 3, and of course we're dropping back to the standard pick and ban format, moving away from the advanced drafts that you get when you get into Ignite, but of course the winning team and the second place team for each MRC region gets that automatic invite into Ignite Stage 2, so they're definitely going to have to be at least studying that advanced ban format.
Yeah, and it's all about seeing what teams consistently have done quite well in the past in the championship that might be pushing for it at the moment, because obviously a lot of the teams that are in Ignite won't be playing for the championship at the same time. So it becomes a little bit of a tier 2 scene. Granted, it's still early days before everything's a bit more established, but like I said, it does give us a good chance to see some of the players that we might be seeing a lot more consistently next week and seeing exactly what kind of pressure they want to put on. The Psylocke and Hela being the saves, and a lot of the hit scan characters of Bucky and Punisher taken out already.
Seeing those removed, like you mentioned. Bucky, of course, very solid into anti-flyers, but with Hela being picked up, little focus onto these flyers like Storm, like the Human Torch, who've massively leapt up in priority. Although Storm has dipped a little bit due to nerfs to Omega Hurricane and Jeff Nado, the Torch still sits very consistently, but so far, like you mentioned, not going to be picked up, as we will see that Emma Frost taken away. Magneto yet to be touched.
Yeah, surprising, really. Maybe both teams just want to work with that. But then again, the Magneto is really strong against the likes of like Punisher or Bucky, just any form of like shield block. So there is at least a protect to run one of them. Hard to know if there's like cap players, group players, what the main focus is going to be from these teams. But I kind of like the Wolverine save, just to make sure that you have something to deal with the tanks, because clearly that's Dawncore's focus right now.
Very much is. With the Magneto on the board, if you do not get that Bulwark onto yourself, you can be very easily picked up by that Wolverine. And of course, Groot has still been seeing quite a fair amount of play, especially with that Punisher banned away. So with that Wolverine protected, it's going to at least dissuade people from moving over to that Groot a little bit. Might still get picked up, although currently QMISTRY are hovering onto Thor and the Penny, but let's not put too much stock in the hovers due to the fact that the entirety of Dawncore is Rocket.
Potentially.
Pick your hero.
Obviously, we see the picks going in a little bit beforehand, I think. So Ultron targeting a little bit of the triple strategist stuff that we've been seeing a lot more. Granted, I feel like if you really want to target that, you go for banning out Mantis. Especially when you've got Adam Warlock available still. Star-Lord could be an option when you've taken out Bucky and Punisher. Right now, Krakoa as a domination. Lots can obviously change. But I'm certainly looking at any Torch players that show up, so I guess it'd be Twitzy. Really don't want to be watching for QMISTRY.
Bringing in that Human Torch, like you say, they've got the Invisible Woman. A pretty standard setup here for QMISTRY, going with that Doctor Strange and the Magneto, the tank lineup that became so popular in Season 0, starting off in Asia, but has really evolved as time goes on to be universal. Whereas Dawncore, no Mantis, like you say, but they are still looking at this Adam Warlock, and they're going to be bringing this in with the Star-Lord. Of course, Adam is the team-up anchor for the Guardians composition, who gives them those revive abilities, but Mantis is the one who gives the damage boost. Not going for that, though. We have the Loki and the Invisible Woman as the setup tier, so a much more defensive strategist style for Dawncore compared to the slightly more aggressive, consistent triple res comp.
Yeah, was Cloak and Dagger taken out? I think it
They
was...
were not.
Yeah, so that's an odd one. I thought that would have sort of been the one to ring true. But especially if you're expected to go to a Wolverine, some of those physicals are going to be important for Matty to nail down. And it's Matty that's just on the sort of side swipe, I suppose, trying to keep his team alive, all playing together, waiting for that leap in over from the Wolverine. And Full Rage, not able to get the elimination. It's Frostin actually that finds that first pick over onto the Doctor Strange.
Already getting one taken down. Points currently being held by Dawncore. Wolverine dives back in, pushed back with the mag cannon from Kizaru as Dawncore claim control over Chemistry and are immediately moving up for a containment to try and hold this central ramp. Defending on the low ground, a little bit risky, but they have some pretty good areas to retreat to into the outsides of this tunnel.
Strangled Prison is making good headway for Treeman, which, you know, pretty apt name, so maybe that was one of the clues for the Wolverine save for Chemistry. But it is sort of looking at the fact that you have to get through the Doctor Strange shield and then also the barrier from Magneto, who is at 50 HP. He's taking a lot of, like, just hot shot damage, and you can start to see these ultimates being farmed up really nicely for Dawncore.
It's being built up, like you say. We do have that God of Mischief on both sides, moving on Invisible Boundary. Up for Matty, almost available for Alo, as they will try and make their way onto the point. Wolverine once again going on in, will grab the Magneto. Bulwark comes out for that defenses, and the healing will keep the team topped up. Last of Mirage without the Iron Bulwark, but retreats into that regen domain to turn it round as regeneration domain. Doc is already off cooldown, straggling Prison onto the Supernova. So much damage coming out, but everyone is tanking through for the moment as they commit to an Iron Nagamoto into the Galactic Legend.
Galactic Legend just on the top, but these invisible boundaries, one of which copied by the Loki, means that Dawncore not really finding an out here so far, but they are pushing up the point nicely. That's why they're happy to keep contesting this, even if it's an eventuality. Last stand going to be used over from Henkin, and the cut through is enough. Look at the resurrects that are coming in now off the back of this Karmic Revival. Roston's been sat on it the whole time, and he's tried to get into the regeneration domain, but the leap pulls him out. Luckily, he still has the cocoon to resurrect straight back into this engagement, and Chemistry now looking that they were winning the fight beforehand. The reinforcements coming in for Dawncore to bring this one back.
Beautiful execution of the Adam Warlock. On this point in particular, it has so much value. With the regeneration from that Karmic Revival being based around Adam, being able to revive underneath the point and then utilize the portal to drop directly onto the point to revive everyone in a safe location where they're not going to get blown up. It is a fantastic spot for Adam Warlock, but you get into some of the points on further into the map. Carousel is okay. Grove, you start to struggle a little bit with actual safe points to get these revives. So let's see if Frosted will stick with this as they make their way in.
Yeah, it's always going to be hard for Chemistry to get working there. You lose that first fight. It was a lot of just poke damage done from Dawncore to get stuff like the God of Mischief up and ready early. And then that long engagement, Frosted and the Karmic Revival right at the perfect time. Into Chemistry, when you have the ultimates available, you don't have... Like, you were the ones that also banned out the Punisher. Like, a Final Judgment might be the thing that can actually carve through a team to take everybody out that the Karmic Revival can't really consistently keep up with it. Now Henkin switching over to the Storm. You've got the Human Torch as well, so that team up is going to be available. But that's both of your duelists dedicating ultimates for one specific moment. So Henkin and Twitzy need to make it count.
Committing to this Firestorm, like you say. Let's look at the counters for Dawncore. We do have that Star-Lord, one of the best duelists when it comes to actually taking 1v1s against other flyers in the game, to having those iframes and being highly mobile. And of course you have Frosted, who is a hit scan character with that quantum magic, being able to get some very solid blow-ups against characters. Cosmic Cluster is more of a projectile, but for now, once again, it's going to be Chemistry who start off with some pickups, and they might get the momentum in this first fight. This time Frosted rushes on in, gets sent to Cocoon, and back to spawn.
That looked a little bit too easy, especially with Dawncore having ultimates to contest this straight away. I think it was Alvim that went down first, and Dawncore from there. You've got your Loki with the God of Mischief just disengaged. Don't farm up any more ultimates for Chemistry, who now have got pretty much everything available. All 6 have just come online at the perfect time. The Dawncore, even with some stuff like the God of Mischief and also the Strangled Prison, might not be enough.
Holder, here comes the Omega Hurricane. Will we see the Supernova for the combo? Omega Hurricane no Supernova. They're just going to chain these one at a time, not committing for that team-up potential. They'd rather just delay it thanks to that invisible boundary being burned out. Now Twitzy has a little bit of a turnaround potential as the Prodon to that invisible boundary for the turnaround. Immediate M can land, and they might be able to get a turnaround, but no, it is absorbed and tagged through easily as in comes the counter Meteor M and the Supernova from the side of QMISTRY, who are still controlling this fight right now.
Yeah, I mean, they have the ultimates and the economy to do it, so it's very nice for them and very clean in the end, even with these resurrects, these regeneration cocoons bringing in a couple more players. Camera Revival's going to be dedicated as well, but QMISTRY are going to be happy with this, right? Like, they've hit 60% over on the objective. It is just more of a case of using these ultimates wisely. Like, it was a really nice Omega Hurricane right at the start to force out the regeneration domain, and then everything followed through for QMISTRY. But this attrition that Dawncore being able to fight with, just able to get the point for the first time.
That's going to be the swap, 71% to 6, but Dawncore in control, starting to catch up. Going to set themselves up for defensive points. Treeman, lovely wall placements just right on the flank. They are targetable and will be able to be blown up from a distance, but of course that does slow down and draw some of the fire off QMISTRY as they begin to make their way back in. Ultimate-wise, Meteor M on the way, Omega Hurricane, and that Supernova about halfway done.
Yeah, he's got to be careful with that invisible boundary when you've got an Omega Hurricane, Meteor M, and all sorts of other stuff. It just push you out of it, not quite doing the same amount of healing as a Luna or a Cloak and Dagger. It might not really matter too much. Froston's been able to get a lot of picks just with the right click to keep resetting these fights. So QMISTRY building stuff up, but it's just more time being wasted. They're at 72% on the point, and now Dawncore looking to make this even by the time this actual fight happens.
Halo is down, QMISTRY forced to back away. They'll wait for a regroup, and like you say, we're probably going to end up with a fight on even, which might take us into an overtime. There's that Psionic Vortex for a little bit of damage and a slow on the approach from QMISTRY, but with Supernova at the ready, I think they might try and commit to the double this time, as Henkin has been holding back. Twitzy on the flank. Here we go. Omega Hurricane. Will we see the Supernova as well? Invisible boundary. And it looks like they're again just going to try and change it together, but they burn everything else. Meteor M, Iron Moto, and they are wiping Dawncore while still holding on to their ultimates. The patience and the control of this team to not go for those aggressive hiccups of just burning everything just for the sake of the combo. This is some really good self-control from QMISTRY.
Ultimates though, maybe not. It's like 4 being dedicated. The stall is going to come in at least with a portal to go and fight this, but you've got Camera Revival about to be ready for Froston, so hop down the invisible boundary to just sort of push things back. Supernova is going to be used as suppressive fire, and it gets Froston. He has the Camera Revival, and he's the first that goes down. So this is a great chance for QMISTRY to actually take the second point.
Trying to push on through Dawncore, trying to melt, but with that extra healing from the invisible boundary, making it much more difficult as the Blast Barrage comes on in, and they catch challenge on the other side. This is Dawncore looking to take back control as they are getting people one by one. Numbers creeping in their way. Now the question is, does Challenge have that portal? Because otherwise there's not a lot of time left. Yes, they do. It's time for the regroup, and immediately you're seeing Sapatic, moving out to try and interrupt, and everyone is trying to make away, and Froston's going to try and interrupt, and they get it with the Spider-Man to pull them out of the portal, forcing QMISTRY to walk back in, and they do not have enough time. That is a next level swap into a quick rollout into some nice high IQ play.
I mean, yeah, that was fantastic, right? He swapped over to Spider-Man to try and contest the point in overtime after he went down as the Adam Warlock. But the proactive nature of like, okay, the only way that they can contest this really is going to be the Strange Portal. If I can get in there and just be annoying, interrupt it, I can take this map. And you can already see, I suppose, for the side of QMISTRY that they're banning out Bucky, they're banning out Punisher. They probably want to put a lot of focus onto Flyers. So it was a good adjustment. I think it's just one of those cases, right, where you should be looking at the fact of Adam Warlock, the triple strategist, not even necessarily like based around the Guardians explicitly. It's just when you have Loki alive, when you have like Invisible Woman still available to choose from, there's a lot that you can grab in the end. So a very interesting one, and the 2 saves of the Salak and the Wolverine not actually picked up or used at all for QMISTRY outside of that first fight. But that makes sense when you're looking at the comp, I guess, that Dawncore running.
Very interesting, like you said, they did not use that Psylocke in particular. Could have been nice to get onto the backline, but with Alvium trying to run that Loki pretty consistently, they did at least have some kind of backline protection. And with that Wolverine, Tree Man had so much freedom without it being shown up, and that early Punisher ban being, well, punished. You mentioned it literally earlier. If you have that Punisher on the board, yeah, the Magneto is going to potentially give it a little bit of a worse time as you're forced to play into the game of who can get that Iron Bulwark onto the Punisher the most when that Final Judgment comes out. But it is the best character for clearing out those group walls right now, and Tree Man just had a little bit too much freedom in these fights.
Yeah, and like Wolverine was on the board briefly,
Yeah.
I think, for Henkin, but switches over for the second point. It's always a tough one, and you don't have the Emma Frost on the board because I think quite wisely Dawncore brought it out themselves. So it's your chances of actually being able to mow down a Groot diminish a lot, and you don't want a player called Tree Man to be able to play Groot. I'll say that much.
Does feel a little bit counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Right, well, this is a best of 3. We are heading into our second map of the series. It is going to be Birnin T'Challa for our second matchup. Will we see the turnaround from QMISTRY, or will Dawncore be able to take us in this 2-0?
Yeah, it's interesting, I suppose. Obviously, not the same rule set as Ignite, not only with the advanced draft system, but also not being able to go to the same map type again. But it's maybe QMISTRY looking at this and going, okay, like, we want to give ourselves those scrappy fights, looking like the same pick ban system, and Dawncore sort of aware, like, okay, yeah, we've shown our hand that we want to play, like, potentially an Adam Warlock triple strategist comp. QMISTRY going for the Emma Frost to just have something a bit more on the board to deal with a Groot. Maybe could just ban out the Groot outright themselves, but maybe you just want to get the Bucky out and continue on with the no-hit scans to shoot down flyers.
Emma very effective, like you say, at dealing with not just Groot if they can get close enough, but also dealing with divers. If you're worried for someone like a Captain America or a Venom, then if Emma can land that Carbon Crush, you have a great set for turnaround potential. So QMISTRY giving themselves a little bit of defensive options. You can also, if your opponents do not get the Magneto, as currently has yet to be protected, still not protected here as we go all the way to Hela, then you can try and grab Star-Lord out of that Blaster Barrage, which of course did receive a buff, a big damage buff for the amount of range it has, meaning that they can dive in and damage people further away as the fall-off has been reduced.
Yeah, I think you have to aim for, like, Lunar Snow was first banned out by Dawncore. Loki might be a decent last ban to really make the triple strategist weaker. Might even put Dawncore off playing it, but if they get Loki, Adam Warlock, it doesn't matter if the other strategist is a Mantis or an Invisible Woman or a Rocket in that sense. So yeah, interesting that they're still sort of committing to that side of it, but it has changed Dawncore's second ban with taking out the Psylocke because Emma Frost is available. I don't want that team up, and I don't certainly want their backline to be harassed that aggressively.
Looks like both teams going to be hovering onto that Human Torch this time. The Atom protected, but yet to be locked in for Dawncore. We'll see if they will go in for that as we make our way in. And Sapatic looking at the Hela, knowing that Twitzy did really enjoy playing that Human Torch last time, so playing a hit scan could be very effective at dealing with them. Literally before I came on to cast with you, I was casting with Liger. We jumped on to one of the OCE teams in Pacific, and they had a person who was not a one-trick, but someone who was extremely proficient with the Black Widow, and they were just locked in on that Human Torch and 1v1 Spider-Man repeatedly.
I mean, yeah, I think even in the early days, top level, comfort has to be considered a lot more. Not any player is a robot at all of the different vanguards or strategists, and people don't get good active practice against a lot of characters. Speaking of which, Henkin Iron Fist certainly looks like it's going to be dedicated too, and so if Dawncore are not careful, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the backline. Alvium should be okay because he's low-key, but Matty, yeah, needs to get the force physics on lock, otherwise Henkin, now as Black Panther, will be able to do more of the same.
potentially worse. More burst damage, less sustain, but going to be a quicker blow, meaning you have less time to react. Black Panther a little bit scarier for backliners, whereas that Iron Fist with that little bit of percentage damage is a little bit more of an all-rounder when it comes to these fights. Second, making their way in, spin kick, javelin, dash, gets the reset, but is forced to double jump to get out of danger.
So much of it is going to be trying to get Alvium down with the regeneration domain, and then it's easy for Twitzy to just hone him down with the dash onto the floor. Now the backline should be a lot more exposed. You don't have that suppressive fire, but he's back in a pretty quick time overall. Twitzy really just carving through them. The points looking to go over to QMISTRY's side first, which is similar to the second point as we just saw in Krakoa. Nowhere near for ultimates to be farmed up, so QMISTRY wanted to get up to a nice position, make sure that Baka could potentially get that God of Mischief online as soon as possible.
Henkin going for classic Black Panther play of standing ominously round the corner, waiting for anyone to step out of position, relying on comms to work out when anyone has overstepped. Nice Pyro Prison to really cut off the approach of Dawncore. QMISTRY are forced to just defend on this high ground. Black Panther is spotted, forced to disengage, but will get out fairly easily. In the meantime, CrossFit is dueling out with Treeman to force them down to the low ground.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be in. And that's a bad pick, actually. Henkin maybe overextended, gets caught out by the Heller on the other side. Both strategist ultimates available, so it's going to be God of Mischief that comes out first for backup. Most likely going for the invisible boundary to get us started, and the Supernova throwing it down onto the ground. The Meteor M missing, really perfectly blocked. And now Twitzy up in the sky has to match the Supernova on to the other side. Meteor M this time out of QMISTRY as the invisible boundaries are just going up on this point. It's really just a case of holding on as much as you possibly can. And now the Silent Seduction coming through from Treeman. It's everything that Dawncore have available to them thrown in, as well as the Goddess of Death. So QMISTRY now forced onto the back foot, still able to contest, but they're forced out so much more. Maybe even the dedication of the last stand not worth it from Henkin, as he came back, changed over from the Black Panther, with still had enough chance to farm up the ultimate and then go for this engagement. Dawncore have to fight tooth and nail for this point.
They're buying literally every second they can to try and turn this round. Treeman has been putting on an absolute clinic, keeping this frontline zone down, but with regeneration domain, it's keeping Magneto here. Challenge is proving so hard to take down. Has to set up the Mind's Aegis as CrossFit is going for the wraparound, wants to get onto Frosted to try and focus them down. Force Physics comes on out, but it's not enough for the blow-up. Frosted able to get out of danger. Treeman finally gets melted as Hagen swapping off that Black Panther onto the Wolverine is starting to cause a lot of pressure for this front line with that percentage damage, and melts through the Magneto as Kizaru will be taken down.
Wow, the point was held for so long that QMISTRY was able to reaffirm the point and actually hold on to it 100% to 0. And that's without the hijinks, the cheesiness perhaps of the triple strategist with Venom Warlock. It was just enough stall to keep fighting. You've got the Lokis being able to copy these invisible boundaries, and on a domination point like this, it's good to just stick it on the side. And there's not really that many ultimates, if you don't have Supernova available, that can really push people out. You might try and see Wolverine go for a leap to pull the Invisible Woman out of her invisible boundary where she's a lot more susceptible. But it just ended up being more of a brawl on the point. Henkin switching back over to the Black Panther. And for Dawncore, it's looking like it could be a good first fight because you have both strategist ultimates really about to be ready for this first engagement.
Give them a huge amount of extra stain onto the point, with the majority of strategist ultimates being enough healing to sustain you through almost every non-ultimate based ability. Only exceptions being stuff that, like you mentioned, could try and take you out of, say, an invisible boundary, like a Wolverine, for example. Mag Cannon from Magneto could be extremely effective. A Crystal Kick could also be quite effective here, but the pressure is going to be on Alo and Matty to see which one is going to be able to allow their team control of that Stellar Spaceport on the first rotation.
Henkin trying to see if he can find the back line. Even if it's just to get a regeneration domain out, that is what he'll take. It's a big resource, and there it is. Full dedication. Now he needs to just try and survive. It's a good shield that comes out from the Invisible Woman. And now it's awkward for Dawncore as they want to contest this. They do have these strategist ultimates, like I mentioned, and they find that first pick as well from Froston.
Zapatek is going to be taken down to Henkin, though, and we're seeing Dawncore pushing them back. Numbers are falling one by one for QMISTRY. They hold their invisible boundary, and the BP has once again been abandoned. We are back over to the Wolverine. Alo keeping the team topped up as they're getting chased down here, almost getting themselves caught out, but Guardian Barrier will allow them to escape. Dawncore taking control here in this game. Number 2, as QMISTRY, with that Wolverine now in tow, will wait, regroup, and prepare to make their way in again. They have Media M. They almost have Silent Seduction and Supernova, but it's going to be Dawncore who pull the trigger before they get the chance to charge them.
I mean, they have 6 ultimates, they might as well. They've got enough to work with. The Meteor M's going to be used on the other side, though, and it catches onto Frost, and after he's finished with a Supernova, that's the sound from the other side as Twitzy, with this invisible boundary, now it's just basically nuking the point as much as they possibly can, seeing if they can catch somebody by surprise. Goddess of Death for Sebedic held on to, as well as the God of Mischief from Albion. He might want to lead with that first sometimes, but he's held on to it for a good point of time. And we're just hitting 50% for Dawncore on this objective. Regardless of whether they win or lose this fight, it's a case of just buying as much time as possible. And they're forcing out more ultimates from QMISTRY too, as God of Mischief was used on Bacchus side too.
Last stand to push on in. A little bit of damage, not enough for a blow-up, but Kizaru does get taken down. Diving onto the Emma, who is out of their diamond form, able to clean them out. This will be QMISTRY reclaiming control, but Dawncore, they took a pretty solid lead there. 61% already on the board, and Wolverine almost chased down until getting KO'd. Now, Dawncore, how do they re-engage? Like you said, they held on to that Goddess of Death. They burned that God of Mischief into the invisible boundary, and yet QMISTRY, they used attrition who just waited out and re-engage afterwards.
That's what I'm worried about with how that first point went for QMISTRY. They held on with Dawncore throwing the kitchen sink at them and was able to cap the point pretty much from that point onwards. So now Dawncore need to be very careful with how much they're dedicating to these fights. If they can find a pick, it could be go time, but you also don't want this fight to go on too long. Sure, you want to farm up your own ultimate to get them going, but QMISTRY are building up a lot at the same time. Goddess of Death is going to be up onto the high ground, just above the objective to try and contest it. QMISTRY still in control. We see the God of Mischief and the Meteor M come through. There goes the Hella, so you lose one of those big damage outputs. And I'm worried about Dawncore falling into the same trap, Tetcher. I don't know if they've got the eliminations or picks to take this one back.
They're burning their own Silent Seduction to try and counter out CrossFit, but they're already down 2 people. They're trying to push in. They will get the pick up onto Twisty, but the entire backline and frontline are taken down in succession. Backline first, followed by the frontline when there's no healing left from the strategist. QMISTRY hold control. They even swapped Henkin on their 3rd hero of the game, once again moving over to the Star-Lord so they could reinforce quickly.
And Treeman's back on Groot too. After using the Psionic Seduction, probably going on to something that's a bit more comfortable, but Henkin is really building up towards that Galactic Legend, and with how long these fights have been going, the Supernova is going to be the thing that starts up by Twitzy. It is going to force a God of Mischief from Albion, and if I have 3 ultimates from Dawncore, having to come out now, it's in overtime, they're pretty much forced all the way back, and nobody's quite gone down just yet. A lot of resources dedicated, and it's really a case of Henkin, if he gets a Galactic Legend on board, he's just got it now, he knows that there's not going to be any support ultimates left. Do you give up the point? You're going to have to, but you can re-engage on this very quickly, but he goes down.
Mad Cannon used to prevent them from dashing onto the point to hold the overtime as Dawncore will reclaim control. And you can see QMISTRY literally running all the way back to spawn. Doctor Strange was once again not bad out, but the team's not wanting to commit to it. They believe they can make their way back in on foot and then swap whoever gets taken down first onto Strange, and they are right. 20% left, more than enough time to make their way in, and they still have that God of Mischief and that Galactic Legend. Henkin gonna get the mulligan.
Has he got there in time? No, Maddie's got the invisible boundary, so that should go straight up here. Regeneration Domain used first, and then there it is. Strangling Prison for Treeman available already. He only switched over about a minute ago. So now I think QMISTRY have to be really careful here. It's still available, but you can just see how much damage and focus that Treeman is taking. Trying to get past these shields, and he gets it. The clear up, but the invisible boundary is going to keep QMISTRY alive in this one. Psionic Seduction going to be used mostly to just catch people off, trying to go around to the side of the point to take people away from it. And there's the follow-up from QMISTRY. Great fight from them. Dawncore look to have stuff set up, but we're going to a map 3 Tetcher.
beautiful psionic seduction. The front line would have been beautiful, but they were setting up barriers for a strategist. Prevent the healing, let your team do the work, put yourself in danger in that case from potential side fire, purely for the goal of making sure your opponents cannot play optimally. And it worked out. Wonderful turnaround there. Chemistry will be taking game number 2, evening up the score as Baka takes the MVP for that game on that Loki, and either of those Lokis could have taken that. Both of them had almost perfect invisible boundaries. Same for the invisible women's, as both teams matched it. Healing output is almost identical between the two teams, although there is a little bit more from Chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, I think Maddie did terrific there. That invisible boundary just coming through at the same time as it would have been Alo, actually. Able to do so much work with just the invisible boundary as Tree Man came in with a strangling prison. It just sort of felt a little bit like it's all about tempo when you have ultimates available. Just for example, the build up to try and get the Star-Lord Galactic Legend available for, it would have been Froston. I just want to confuse me because he switched over to Strange at the end. It felt that point was already lost for them. So just disengage a little bit and then re-engage with a Galactic Legend, and you might be able to catch people because a lot of resources were taken. However, they sort of tried to fight for too long. People start getting picked off, and then it's a full reset, which is going to take 30 to 45 seconds, which means that at that point, Chemistry can just build up some of those support ultimates, the strategist ones, and ultimately they're the ones that saved them in that final fight. So it's moments like that fine margins that cost Dawncore there a little bit. Just knowing when to dedicate, because they don't want the opponents to farm up some of those game-winning ultimates.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That is so right, because we just saw exactly that from Alo, from Baka. Look at the amount of times they were KO'd in comparison. Alvium and Matty, they played insane. 4 times taken down and 5 times taken out. Compare that on the other side. Baka, 0. Alo, 0. They were never eliminated, and we saw them retreating while other people were taken out, while the Henken got taken down on that Star-Lord, having to retreat back and back out after that last fight. The rest of them were backing up so they could regroup and move out together, preventing ult charge from their opponents and making sure that they had presence, that they were always available and not getting staggered to keep their team topped up. A beautiful play as we're going to get ourselves ready for map number 3. Where would you like to see them go?
Probably not domination, I would say. Just now that like Dawncore have that freedom, and we sort of know from just people sort of talking about it in the scene of that it's a squad to keep an eye on when you have like the MRC being available to them. So honestly, just going to a game mode where you can play around the objectives a little bit more, whether it's convoy, which is what it's going to be for Yggdrasill, or even convergence, right? Something that doesn't feel like it's just about who takes the better, grittier team fights.
Something a little bit different. You've both shown that you can win on these domination maps. You can brawl. We know this. Now it's time for strategy. When to re-engage, when to regroup, when to be able to try and push and hold onto a point, and when to set up a defense and let your opponent get some distance. This is what we're going to see. As now the teams have swapped sides, Dawncore are now on the right, Chemistry are on the left, as Luna and Punisher will be banned down again. This looks familiar, Ryan. That doesn't.
I mean, that was the same as last game, right?
Yeah,
they saved the Emma Frost because then it forced the silent ban too. But you could sort of tell, like, yeah, Emma Frost for Treeman was pretty good, but you sort of move over to sort of be able to play the Emma Frost when it's available. I do like that. You sort of know that at least one of Punisher and Bucky's going to be taken out as those first 2 bans for Chemistry, so even if you don't intend to play around it, it's going to force some changes for Chemistry.
Chemistry have banned out that Winter Soldier every single time. So now, giving Dawncore the chance to actually pick it up will mean that they have a little bit of crowd control against potentially a Black Panther, a Wolverine, anything that we do know that Henken does like to jump onto sometimes, with, of course, that Bionic Hook and that Soldier's Fist to get some potential turnarounds there. Could give them a lot of opportunity, and of course Tainted Voltage to knock people out of the sky. It is a projectile character, but you still have very solid range, and the projectiles are quite fast, so you can use it against flyers as well.
Ultron's an interesting one. Naturally, I think for a lot of reasons, like we've seen a little bit more Iron Man on this map, specifically from Knuten. I don't think we've seen it from much else, so you do have that team up that is an option over on this defense. Certainly on the second point, more so. The Rocket Raccoon saved for Dawncore. I wonder how much of it is to play around stuff like the team up with Penny Parker, or whether it is a case of, okay, we want to get something like a Wolverine, we use the packs to begin with, have people leap in and go for the big jumps. The Penny Parker ban would suggest that it's a little bit of both.
They don't want to know. Chemistry are like, Chemistry are going to be thinking the exact same thing as you there. Of just like, is this just for revives? Is this for Wolverine? Is this for Penny? We don't want to deal with that. It's just easier to ban it away. They've been banning Rocket every time, so this time it's sneaking through. They ban the team up.
It could be comfort again because we had a Rocket Raccoon main that was in Ignite. I don't think they made, off the top of my head, they made top 8. But
Insomnia ran a fair amount of Rocket. I don't think it's a main for them, but they've been the team that have been running it the most consistently, and they did make playoffs. But like you say, we actually had a main who did not make it, but I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Yeah. But there's just examples of that, really. So the Be Right Back 2 means that you can still have some sort of like mini resurrect without dedicating it wholly over to the Adam Warlock. And right now, it feels like it is just a case of like out-sustaining the opponent as much as possible. But here, like, you've got Chemistry dedicating over to the triple strategist with the Loki, with the Invisible Woman, and then obviously with the Ultron on top. Henken, the save that came in from Dawncore, Chemistry are like, yeah, we'll pick Bucky ourselves.
Make the most of it. Like I said, triple strategist using Ultron as that second duelist in this case, as it is a hit scan character with incredibly high damage output and an ultimate that can get some really good single target blow-ups. They're going to be utilizing this with that Invisible Woman to make sure that Ultron stays up in the high ground, but their bionic hook allows Frostum to get the first pickup onto CrossFit.
I mean, it's all about pick and poke here, especially when you've got the Black Widow over in the lobby. Hot shots more than anything. You can force out some of these bigger cooldowns, certainly from the strategists. It's going to be major, but you are sort of funneling yourself into a more open point. You're not trying to outflank them, but it is forcing Chemistry all the way back. It's a nice stun that actually went over onto 2 of the strategists in the back line, and Treeman's found a pick over onto the Ultron.
Kraken Impact being put extremely early, utilizing the Loki clone to commit to this. Invisible Woman going to be getting out of danger. Invisible Boundary for the turnaround. Tire Crystal Kick, and Frost is just being juggled there with the mag cannons, with the Crystal Kicks, and they're forced to back out. Not going to find another reset, as finally Chemistry will at least put a stop to the card, but with Henkin taken out again, with the straggling prison coming out from Treeman, they're going to try and lock them into this doorway, but with that Invisible Boundary, it is holding them back. Media M is just eaten by Treeman.
Yeah, it's that brawl side happening yet again. Albion went down, but is now back into the fight from the Be Right Back, and Froston keeps finding these picks that finds the openings to these engagements. So a pretty decent time set on the board for Dawncore. Still some great stuff from Chemistry, like the Loki copy for the Invisible Boundary. You sort of see the Dawncore trying to set up with the Strangler Prison. Then the Invisible Boundary is available for ILO too. So it is these like big ultimate switcheroos are being countered by Chemistry. Now it's just the fact that Dawncore could just pick all the way through you when you've got Sabatic over on the Black Widow and then Froston available on the Bucky.
Henkin just made a risky play, something that not a lot of players have the guts to do. They had a 100% charge onto that Kraken Impact, but they said it is worth more. We could Kraken Impact and just have me go down, but then we're staggered and the opponents get a push. It is better for me to lose an ult to try and go for a Wolverine, to try and stop this group. They get a focus and are able to get out of danger, putting the attention onto that group. It's not enough for the pickup as Froston will get their own Kraken Impact. Reset 1, again into the backline, trying to get onto the Loki. They use the Soldier's Fist to get out of danger as the silent seduction going to come in. Wolverine gets another pickup, and Henkin is still trying to make stuff happen and gets the double here.
It's really paid off, actually. It's still a good amount of progression made for Dawncore, even if the objective stops here. They've got 4 minutes to keep on pushing, sure. But getting up to this point after a clean engagement is tough. You're right, Henkin, it was a risk to switch over. And realistically, they could have gone for the Kraken Impact to go for a fight and really stop Dawncore, because this is now hard to pick up the payload again from this certain position. And they don't really have ultimates to boot as of yet. Strangler Prison is really the best bet for Treeman, but you've got the Invisible Boundary available from ILO yet again.
They took the risk, like you say, but they've now been able to build up that Wolverine ultimate by swapping to it earlier, but they did lose that Kraken Impact. Here comes the last stand, right off the bat, it's a Kraken Impact as Twitzy stole the Winter Soldier after Henkin swapped off it and built up the ult. They just wiped them off the board, Ryan. That is some teamwork. They knew the assignment and they played it to perfection.
Now it's a case of not having either or. Like, it's such an explosive showing, but at this point, you know that you have to hold for a while. Being able to cycle stuff out might be key here. Especially because you don't have the most offensive of, like, strategist and certainly Vanguard ultimates. Meteor M for Challenger, just the thing to keep an eye on. Dawncore already losing out on one of their players already means that this has to be a reset, so QMISTRY very happy. Twitzy is very close to having another Kraken Impact. He's more than halfway there.
Frosted has theirs, though. We have that Galactic Legend as well. Media M, if they get that silent seduction, which will be the trigger, Treeman will be using that for the opening as they have swapped off of that Groot onto Emma to try and lock them down. Bionic Hook, Iron Bulwark has to be burned. And Sabatic being forced to back away. Here comes the Media M directly on top, and it's going to be absorbed thanks to that regeneration domain. Cosmic Yard Amplifier for the setup as Kizaru tries to find someone on the flank and will take out Twitzy.
Got the invisible boundary in use from Bakken, and there's the one that follows for Ilo. You're still a player down. One of your main damage dealers as well. Birabak's going to at least keep somebody else back in the fight. The Emma Frost for Treeman as he swapped away from the Groot, knowing that Henkin really spotted out the Groot's use and wanted to put an end to it as quickly as possible. 90 seconds, 2 minutes gone, fighting over on point B. And now Kraken Impact available yet again for Twitzy. Maybe waiting out for the silent seduction. And you got the last stand that just cleans house yet again. So Dawncore looking a little bit worried now. Your best bet is to have Frostin have another Kraken Impact. But I'm sort of looking at like some of the more like Vanguard ultimates finding an opening. Silent seduction for Treeman's going to be out for a bit. And Sabatic's actually swapping over towards the Adam Warlock, the triple strategists again.
This could potentially give them a revive if they're able to delay. They're trying to commit to the fact they might have overtime and will need to stay on the point. They can swap to Strange later, but having an ultimate build-up time on Adam Warlock could give them that opportunity to turn this round. They make their way forward, like you say, Kraken Impact is going to be the trigger for now. Keeping the pressure onto Henkin. Lovely job by Frosted with that Bionic Hook for the setup. They're also able to find the isolation onto Magneto, chasing them down, pulling in Force Physics. Kraken Impact looking for the Loki, but lovely Carbon Crush, and Frosted is wiped off the board. Maddie with the Eternal Bond, but it does not come out in time.
I mean, the setup there was perfect for Frosted. He finds a pick onto the Wolverine. Now Challenge is just cutting through them with the Meteor M. Kraken Impact going to be used over on the other side. 10 seconds for Dawncore to keep contesting. Frosted switched over towards the Strange. And the resets gathered up on the back of these Loki clones. There's the jump in, but nobody can quite get onto the point. Just a second too late in the end. But for Frostin, it was set up perfectly, right? You find a pick onto the Wolverine, you force out the regeneration domain and the bulwarks from Magneto, and you're like, it's go time. Kraken Impact, you jump straight in, and you're grabbed right by the chin by Emma Frost, and you're just CC'd out, and then you're eliminated. It was such a great call for Treeman to swap over to the Emma Frost, to grab onto him, CrossFit to grab onto them, and be able to continue on. Like, what a brutal fight in the end for QMISTRY to deal with.
Winter Soldier used to be one of the top characters in the game, but since some slight adjustments to their kit and the introduction of Emma Frost, they have started to dip down the priority list, and we saw exactly why. Winter Soldier says, you are going to come over here, or I'm going to come to you and lock you up. Emma Frost says, not if I have anything to say about it. Getting lockdowns, getting turnarounds with that Carbon Crush into that Crystal Kick, they turn these fights so quickly, and immediately you can see Winter Soldiers from both sides are starting to be abandoned. Henkin has moved over to the Wolverine, and Twitzy is bringing out the thing. Cosmic Fastball, Ryan?
Oh, potentially. We saw a lot of this from Demon and Insomnia. I think overall the trend for these teams is there's not really been any like tread, any damage boost. Like we've not seen much Terror Capes, we've not seen the Inspire from Mantis. It doesn't seem to be the focus of these teams. And the Leap isn't the best, I would say. Like it sort of skims across the ground like a pebble. But I guess it's good for Dawncore to know that that's the case, and they might actually just give up a lot of space in preparation for what's going to be another fastball.
They were looking for an early pickup, but it was only one. If they could get that early elimination, it's cool. But they're using it as a rollout strat here. Send in the Wolverine and immediately swap that thing back onto the Winter Soldier to follow up. It's an interesting strategy. We've seen some interesting aggressive rollout strategies. Special delivery, who ordered an Armorer? As they focus down to try and get the group, but the regen domain, Tree-Man's getting away!
I mean, that was actually crazy from Alphium. It was aggressive, right? He has to throw a decoy down into a position like that. He puts himself at risk. And now the backline is being completely harassed by a tree man. The invisible boundary is going to be used square in the center. And Henk can swap over to the Wolverine. Has done a lot for chemistry here. Be Right Back is going to bring in Kizaru that just went down. And this engagement looking scrappy, pretty much on brand with what these two teams have been doing so far, Tetcher. And everything from chemistry being used. The last stand is great to just set up space for the Psionic Seduction. That's going to cut through people. The Resurrect, the Soul Preservation coming in from Adam Warlock, going to be cancelled. And that first point taken incredibly quickly from chemistry.
Rocket trying to delay, but being forced to run out here. Kizaru looking for a portal. They tried to hold it, but it's too late. Now the portal is just a window to failure.
Yeah, swapping over, no chance now, but that's a good mental boon for chemistry. Like, sure, you're using a lot in these engagements, but it's about cycling what you have available. Psionic Seduction, you've just used, but you just got Meteor M. So at least for challenge, he's able to work with something for the time being. He's not afraid to get aggressive. He knows that he's got some of the support and can see Froston trying to pull in over on the flank. He does have that Comet Revival, so it's not going to be a big dedication from him. In fact, he needs to group up with the rest of his team to get used out of the Soul Bond, and most importantly, stay alive.
4 minutes to make 20 meters, as already chemistry have made a huge push in. Galactic Glacier going to be coming in with the Media M, attempted for the turnaround, tried to catch Zapatic in mid-air, was unable to do so, but Zapatic still loses the majority of their own. Thanks to that Media M, and forced to back away as the Cosmic Yard Amplifier. For the damage boost comes on in, Blaster Mirage to the backline, but Invisible Boundary is putting a massive stop to this, a big old shutdown, unless this Media M can get the pickup, which it will at the challenge. Not the target they might have been looking for, but easily good enough.
Kizaru's doing a good job of just keeping things afloat. And now everybody's sort of set up in a good spot. Like Comet Revival, yeah, it's available. It doesn't have to be used consistently by Froston. It just has to be like the Doomsday Protocol, quite literally. You want to be using the God of Mischief from Alvium, potentially getting some other stuff like a Cosmic Yam Amplifier up again for Maddie. Silent Seduction for Tree Man. Going to be key to keeping this fight pinned down. 3.5 minutes left for chemistry to push a little bit further, but we've seen how much of a pain it can be. Silent Seduction going to be used on both sides, it looks like. And now it's more of a stalemate. Nobody's gone down. In fact, no damage has realistically been taken, which means that some of those bigger supportive elements, I suppose, like the regeneration domain, had to have been used.
CrossFit got caught in the pull from the Psionic Seduction, meaning that their ultimate is on the half cooldown, meaning it's still available in just a short amount of time as Baka's going to be going in for that God of Mischief right away. Invisible Boundary coming in anywhere in this 10-second period as Kizaru is going to be the first to go down. Alvium cloned the rocket here, sends the Battle Rebirth Beacon up high, last stand into the backline to try and clear space for this push. Baka with that Invisible Boundary is creeping their way in as people have to keep touching this point, which means they have to move into the Invisible Boundary as the card is moving forward. Kizaru Media M takes out Twitzy. Tree-Man with another Psionic Seduction to try and lock him down and wipes out the backliners. The Wolverine is taken down and CrossFit is all that's left, buying every second they can with that diamond form with 20 health left, and the card is stopped.
Oh, they just held on right at the end there. You could tell that chemistry weren't expecting that Silent Seduction so quickly from Tree Man, especially after the Meteor M. But you're looking at the ult charge, like 4 ultimates used in quick succession, and that Camp Revival for Froston gathering cobwebs. But so long as it's ready when it's absolutely needed, that's what's important. Meteor M for challenge, he's going to have one target in mind. Surely chemistry know that their Comet Revival's available. They don't want to go for heavy engagements to just have everybody brought back. They need to be clinical with how they take this next fight.
Challenge with the Media M, hovering around the flag. Froston has held onto this Karmic Revival for so long. If they can avoid that Media M or an Omega Hurricane, then this may be Dawncore being able to turn this around with 1.5 minutes to go. Regeneration Domain is already burnt out. Zapatic getting focused down a little bit. Here comes that Meteor M. If it can hit a decent target here, looks for Rocket, who dashes away and is able to get around. The car moves on in as everyone dashes away, and that is going to be GG. Dawncore forced off the point. QMISTRY move on in and will take control and take the series.
A good fight from them. Like, you lose the first map, you're able to go for this reverse sweep, and you also have Dawncore making some really nice adjustments to the draft, being able to show multiple different compositions and different ideas. Yeah, QMISTRY are able to just hold the line, and I have to say that backline, certainly from ILO, you see a little bit of focus from Invisible Woman at the moment, but Cloak and Dagger seems to have taken the biscuit in like the real strategist to be afraid of, outside of the obvious with Loki. But there's so much there to show you exactly why teams like Virtus Pro, for example, put so much focus onto running this strategist over the likes of a triple strategists with an Adam or an Ultron, or even like a Luna Snow in some elements, right? It's just so good at being able to keep people going. And whilst the healing output from Invisible Boundary isn't the strongest, it really cements that sort of death ball playstyle. Everybody can group up, everybody can fight together, and QMISTRY have had exactly that. Some great chemistry off of playing with each other. That it's a testament to how they beat Dawncore, who are a really, really good team.
They really are. They've got some great MRC performances in the past, really creeping up towards that top 32, and I believe maybe a top 16 at one point. I'll have to double check that. But they did play extremely well, turning that fight around. These two teams extremely even, but it does turn out to be QMISTRY that take the win. And if you look at the statistics, that does seem to come down to how Baka and Alo were also, once again for the second game in a row, able to protect each other. 3 times KO'd for Baka, only 1 for Alo. You look on the other side. Matty and Froston, they were taken down 4 and 6 times. Alvium was taken down 5 times. It is a significant amount more. They were always getting focused onto this backline, whereas the strategists on the other side, despite the fact that Matty, by the way, got 41k healing, which is insane in a triple strategist composition, even if one of them is the Adam, they were still just keeping each other safe, and that is so important for a top-tier composition.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that feels the most notable, granted, like, scoreboards can, like, damage done, how much of that is to just into Vanguards that are going to get healed up. Final hits.
Yes.
Like, look at the difference of how many, certainly the duelists got. Henkin and Twitzy were great there, and almost combined, I think they got more final hits than the entirety of Dawncore. So it was a bit like, yeah, sure, like the sustainability, I suppose, of the comp that was playing. It lacked a little bit of edge. And we know that Sapatic can have his moments. He's been fantastic. And even with Froston, we've seen a lot of the duelists move over to Adam Warlock and still get a good amount of final blows. But it still just felt that something was missing when it came to lethality, I suppose it would be. To get damage in and actually take down a QMISTRY who weren't exploiting stuff like triple res comp. They just had, they didn't have the Rocket Raccoon, actually. They just did it normally. I was going to say Raw Dogged it, but I wouldn't say that on the broadcast, but you get my point.
Just did. Oh dear, but yeah, you're 100% right. 21 final hits from Henkin and Twitzy between them, compared to the 19 total. And even if you exclude those duelists, it's 16 final hits for the rest of the team combined, even without the duelists. It is just a slightly more KO leading composition. They were able to take fights a little bit more efficiently, and that came to the right adjustments. Moving on to the Wolverine when it was important. Moving on to the Winter Soldier when it was important. Moving on to the Storm when it was important. They were adjusting effectively to just make sure that they always had at least a tool to try and deal with what Dawncore had. Dawncore, we do not say goodbye to them yet. This is MRC, meaning it's double elimination at this stage. So they do still have a chance to make their way through the bracket, but they are now on elimination warning. If they lose one more time, one more series, they are going to be taken out and will have to try, if they want to get into Ignite, try in the open qualifiers for stage 2. So, a lot of pressure, meaning that they'll be playing against all these former Marvel Rivals Ignite teams as well. All the people who were eliminated that bottom cart, like Schmungus, for example, like Dusty. You have all these teams to go up against.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the most apt way to put it is I don't think that's the last we're going to see of Dawncore. For
Hey, I
sure.
like it. Perfect.
It feels like they're just going to be consistent around. Certainly the players, even if they all go in different directions. But like you said, there are so many other opportunities to qualify for Ignite, assuming that things sort of work out the same as they have done previous. And they still have a chance for the MRC. So it's not complete doom and gloom. I think it's more my takeaway from this series is I was told, Ex Oblivion, Dawncore, maybe Exodia, like teams to sort of keep an ear out. So seeing teams like Chemistry come in makes me excited that there's just, you know, almost like an all business approach. Teams coming in and just doing a lot of damage and worth noting for the future of EMEA, whether it's in Ignite or certainly the top levels of MRC.
There's a whole another world of teams down here in MRC. These are the teams of the future. And again, being able to qualify for Ignite without having to play against any of the Ignite teams can give you a huge advantage because you have an entire season of Ignite to watch all your opponents and to learn from them. And your opponents will not have seen you playing against Ignite level teams yet. So you'll be able to move in with less information shown. But for now, Ryan, that is the end of our cast today. Thank you very much for joining. As always, where can people find you?
On Twitter, I've started trying to post a little bit more again, some of the data side of Ignite, especially. So pretty much there, it's just x.com/Ryan Central, or you can find me on Broadcast with you for the rest of this week, I think.
Yeah, every day except Sunday we're on together. When's this video coming out, actually? Hang on. This video will be the Saturday video. So yeah, that'll be the last day we're doing, I'm pretty sure, if my maths is correct. It'll either be Saturday or Sunday. Yeah, this is definitely Saturday. So if you, by the time this video goes out, we'll be casting. So if you jump over, you'll probably see either us or Legday and Moxie who are on before us, as it's the rotation setup at that point. So jump on over and say hi. Come join us on the main broadcast to see some more Ignite play. Thank you, Ryan, very much again for joining. Make sure to check them out. Their links are in the description. And, of course, if you want to support the channel, then you can do so by liking the video, leaving a comment about your favorite teams, MRC. There are a lot of players out there. If you will watch my videos, leave a comment saying about your team, and I'll try and jump in on them. And, of course, if there's anything you want me to cover in particular, any teams, any tournaments I can try and get my hands on, we'll see. But, obviously, my Ignite stuff has to come first in terms of they pay me money. But you can also support the channel by subscribing and ringing that bell so you see when the videos go live, including my news show that comes out every Monday and gets almost no views because YouTube does not like to promote it because it's not my usual content. But I put a lot of effort into that. It's easily the longest amount of time I take to do anything throughout the week. So let me know, and also let me know who you'd like as a guest on that. I'd love to try and get like Cozy on at some point to like do an America recap at the end of the season, but we'll see if I can get my hands on that. Fingers crossed. But you can also support by hitting that thanks button on my channel page, which is a one-time donation if you have anything to spare. Or if you really want to support, then you can become a member. You get early access to videos whenever possible. If I go to LANs, you're going to get behind-the-scenes content. And, of course, if you want to be getting your name shouted out at the end of these casts or in the credits of the news videos, then that's the way to do it. Like these wonderful people, Dump Alt, Arso, Doki Pokey, and John. Thank you very much for your support. For now, though, that's been it for this video. I'm going to go rest out. I'm going to see if I can get someone on to cast another video today because I have Ignite tomorrow, so I might not have time to cast one tomorrow, but I'm going to try and get one done today. If tomorrow's video is me by myself, I was unsuccessful. If I have a friend, I was successful. But for now, I've been Tetcher. Thank you all very much for watching. Big thanks to Ryan once again, and I will see you all tomorrow.